Hello friends, English literature, Introduction to Drama. As You Like It by William Shakespeare, short questions with answers. Short questions 11 to 21. Question 11. How is, according to Jack, Duke Senior a usurper? Answer. Jack is a melancholy person. The first lords and emirs have seen him lie under a tree near the stream in the forest. He was troubled with the fact that the hunting of the deer was a greater cruelty than the banishment of the Duke Senior by his younger brother, Frederick. Jack thinks that Duke Senior was a greater usurper than Duke Frederick for killing the deer in a cruel manner. Jack thinks that the deer are the native dwellers of the forest allotted to them by nature as their habitat. Duke Senior and his companions have no right to disturb the native animals of the forest, but they are behaving towards the animals in a most autocratic and selfish manner by terrorizing and killing them. So Jack is of the opinion that Duke Senior is as much a usurper as his brother Duke Frederick is. Duke Frederick has usurped the dominions of Duke Senior, while Duke Senior has usurped dominions of the animals who live in the forest. Question 12. Describe Jack's reaction to a wounded deer. Answer. Jack is a melancholy person. He does not like hunting deer. He was troubled with the fact that the hunting of the deer was a greater cruelty than the banishment of the Duke Senior by his younger brother, Frederick. He considers Duke Senior to be a greater usurper than Duke Frederick for killing the deer in a cruel manner. Seeing a poor wounded deer lying by the stream, he used a thousand comparisons to grieve about the poor wounded stag. He had seen a wounded deer shedding tears into the stream nearby, which was already filled with water and which did not need any more water. He compared this with human beings who give more to those who already have too much. The next comparison also gave emphasis on the worldly fact that misfortunes turn away friendship. Many human beings who are enjoying prosperous life do not pay heed to those who are facing financial difficulties. In the same way, Jack sees a herd of deer jumping and running past the wounded deer without paying attention to their wounded comrade. The stag was abandoned by its herd uncaringly. That is exactly what prosperous men do. Question 13. Why did Sylvius think that Corinne was not a true lover? Answer. Sylvius believed that he was a true lover and Corinne would not be able to understand the true conception of his love. When he asked Corinne about his follies committed when he was in love, Corinne answered that he had behaved foolishly thousands of times in love and he had forgotten all that he had done. Then Sylvius points out the weaknesses of Corinne as a lover. Number 1. First, Sylvius said that if Corinne did not remember the slightest follies which he committed under the influence of his passionate love, then he had never loved truly. Number 2. Secondly, if Corinne had never tried to praise his mistress and to bore the listener with the praise, he was not in true love. Number 3. Lastly, if Corinne never left his companion under the influence of passion as Sylvius was forced to do, he was not in love. Question 14. Explain with the reference to Ulf rail against all the firstborn of Egypt. Answer. According to biblical episode, God destroyed the firstborn of every Egyptian family, including that of a king, as a punishment for not allowing Israelis to leave Egypt. As a consequence of this massacre, there was great lamentation in the country all night. preventing the people from sleeping. Jack says that if he cannot sleep, he would curse all those children who had been killed and whose deaths prevented people from sleeping. Here, Jack means that Duke Senior, the elder brother, should not have allowed the younger brother, Frederick, to drive him out from his dukedom. Jack intended to say that he would not have had to follow Duke Senior to the forest and lead that hard life. He does not want to be personally offensive to Duke Senior, hence he says all the firstborn indirectly to Duke Senior. Question 15. Describe the 7 stages in a man's life, or write a short note on the 7 stages of life. Answer. Jack says that there are 7 stages in a man's life. They are: number 1, infancy; number 2, childhood; number 3, the lover; number 4, the soldier; number 5, the justice; number 6, old age; and number 7, mental dementia and death. Infancy. In this stage, he is a baby dependent on others and needs to be constantly attended to. Childhood. It is in this stage that he begins to go to school. He is seen going unwillingly to school at the slow speed of a snail. The lover. In this stage, the lover is always remorseful due to some reason or other, especially for the loss of love. He heaves deep sighs like a furnace and writes sad ballads in praise of his beloved. The soldier. It is in this stage the soldier is full of foreign oaths. He keeps a beard like leopard's whiskers. He is very sensitive to his honor. He is hot-headed and is always working towards making a reputation for himself and gaining recognition. The justice. In this stage, the justice has an impressive round belly with good chicken meat. His eyes have a stern expression. He keeps a beard of formal cut in order to produce an impression of dignity. He has acquired wisdom through the many experiences he has had in life. Old age. He begins to lose his charm, both physical and mental. He begins to become the branch of others' jokes. He loses his firmness and assertiveness and shrinks in stature and personality. Mental dementia and death. In this period of life, a man loses his teeth, eyesight, his sense of taste, and his memory. This period of life is called a second childhood because a very aged man is as helpless as a child and he behaves as foolishly as a child does. Question 16. Comment on the stages of life as is divided by Jack. Answer. Jack's division of a man's life into 7 stages is very important because all the characters and stages of life are described here in terms of speaking. The lover sighs. The soldier is full of strange oaths. The old man loses his manly voice. And by the final stage, the man cannot speak at all, having lost everything. Speaking is therefore conceived of in terms of time passing. This vision of time progressing is part of what makes Jack so melancholy. However, it is to be noted that Jack here describes only the unpleasant aspects of every stage in the life of a man. Being a cynical philosopher, he takes notice only of the seamy side of human being. He views the end as being sense teeth, sense eyes, sense taste, sense everything, a sense loss. But regardless of what Jack claims about old age, we have Adam to dismiss what Jack says. Adam is clearly not without his teeth, his eyes, taste, or anything else except stamina. Thus, Shakespeare is at his best shows the folly of Jack by presenting Adam as living proof that Jack is incorrect. Question 17. They live like the old Robin Hood of England. How does Charles describe the life of Duke Senior and his companions in the Forest of Arden? Answer. Duke Senior was banished by his younger brother Frederick and was living in the Forest of Arden with his companions Charles, the professional court wrestler, and of the new Duke. Frederick informs Oliver that Duke Senior and his companions are living freely in the Forest of Arden like old Robin Hood of England. Many young gentlemen run to the Duke Senior every day, and they pass their time in a carefree manner as they had in the Golden Age. Robin Hood was a famous bandit who, being outlawed, lived in the forest of Sherwood with his merry companions. He terrorized the abbots and lords who lived in luxury, leaving the poor to starve. They used to rob rich travelers, but they helped the poor. He passed some years in the carefree enjoyment and freedom. Thus, he is a symbol of freedom and equality. Like Robin Hood, Duke Senior and his companions enjoyed a carefree life and freedom in the Forest of Arden. Question 18. Comment on the significance of the line, "They live like the Robin Hood of the old Robin Hood of England." Answer. Here we find a comparison between the play and England with the reference to Duke Senior and his men as Robin Hoods. They are described as they live like the old Robin Hood of England. Shakespeare hereby conjures up a picture of England even though we are in foreign country. This picture of image serves to make the play more immediate for his audience. This makes our mind gauge what we are going to find next. The reference to Robin Hood also serves another picture that is the purpose of establishing which duke is good and which duke is evil. Robin Hood is a story that all Elizabethan theatre audiences would have been familiar with, and it is a way to immediately give Duke Senior a personality without having to write too many lines for him into the play. Question 19. What is the Forest of Arden? Answer. There is the Forest of Arden, which is located between France, Luxembourg, and Belgium, whereas the Forest of Arden is actually an English forest located near where Shakespeare was born in Warwickshire. Arden is also the familiar name of Shakespeare's mother. But Shakespeare's forest is in fairyland, an English fairyland with glimpses of the classical Arcadia. The name Arden also belonged to the wooden part of Warwickshire, and this may have been in Shakespeare's mind as well. J.C. Smith. The play itself includes pastoral themes from the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia by Sir Philip Sidney. So it invokes the image of Arcadia of paradise. The word father bears a resemblance to Eden, the biblical paradise, where Adam and Eve first got together, not an entirely unrealistic interpretation given the poor marriages with which the play ends. Question 20. Comment on the significance of the Forest of Arden. Answer. The Forest of Arden plays a very significant role in As You Like It. It appears differently to everyone in it depending on their personalities. To Duke Senior, the life in the Forest of Arden is sweeter than that of in the court. In the forest, he finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. This is an image of the goodness of the Duke himself. However, Oliver comes across quite different versions of the forest later on in the play. He encounters snakes and lions. The Forest of Arden gives the romantic setting of the play. The romantic quality is heightened by the presence of the pastoral characters such as Sylvius, Phoebe, and Corinne. Here, Rosalind shakes off her womanly shyness and invites her lover to make love to her, taking her to be her own beloved. In The Forest of Arden, two villainous characters change into noble-minded men. Oliver was a wicked man, but when he came to the Forest of Arden, he changes into a good man and became worthy of the love of Celia. Duke Senior, who banished Duke Senior, came to the forest with an armed force to kill Duke Senior, but after meeting a saintly kind of man in the forest, he was converted from a life of villainy to a religious life. Question 21. Why does Celia flee from the court with Rosalind? Answer. Celia and Rosalind are cousins. Rosalind's father, Duke Senior, was banished by Celia's father, Frederick. But Frederick did banish Rosalind because his daughter Celia was deeply attached to Rosalind. If Rosalind was banished, Charles says Celia, would have followed her, Rosalind's exile, or have died to stay behind her. When Duke Frederick passes an order of banishment against Rosalind, Celia protests against her father's decision and says that she and Rosalind have slept together, risen at the same time, learned together, played together, eaten together, and like Juno's swans have gone everywhere together. Their companions have been as inseparable as that which existed between the two swans of Juno. Thus, because of her deep attachment to Rosalind, Celia flees from the court with Rosalind when Frederick banishes Rosalind. Thank you friends for watching my video.